Well, my dudes and dudettes, you're thinking about buying a CNC machine to make a little extra money around the house. Well, it's a good thing you stopped by this video because today we're going to talk about all the pros and the cons when it comes to owning a CNC machine. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that I have nothing in common with any of the brands that we're talking about. They're not sponsoring this video. I've just owned one a couple years and I thought it would be pretty cool to come on here and explain to you what I think is worth it and what's not worth it when it comes to CNCs. And also some of the downfalls, the negatives, and the positives of owning your own CNC. Listen, at the end of the day, you're thinking about making money on the side or on the weekends, or maybe you want to make this a permanent job for you. Well, I wish I would have had one of these videos before I bought mine. Now, what type of CNCs are we talking about? We're not talking about the industrial kind. We're not talking about the ones that are going to cost you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. We're talking about the DIY, the homeowner, the first time buying CNC, right? So the XCARVEs, the SHAPEOKO. Right now, I use the SHAPEOKO XXL. That's what you see in the back of this video. We also have more videos here on this channel to show you how to use this thing, but that is what we're talking about. The run-of-the-mill, midpoint, $1,000, $2,000 machines, not the ones that are $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Now, there's two major brands out there at this price point that you're probably looking at. One is the XCARVE, the Inventables, and the other one is the Carve by Create, or the SHAPEOKO, right? I went with the SHAPEOKO. They were basically the same company at one point, then they split off and they're doing their own things. The reason why I went with the SHAPEOKO was I just thought that it was built a little bit better than the XCARVE, and it was a little bit larger than for what I wanted it for. You can buy different sizes. You can buy the small, the medium, the large, or in my case, the XXL, right? That's the largest one for the SHAPEOKO. Here's what I'm going to tell you straight out. A lot of people that I know own these, and they started out with something smaller. So the XL SHAPEOKO or the smaller XCARVE. Don't do that. Here's why. Just like building a shed or a garage, you always end up needing more space, and that's what's going to happen with you if you buy something too small. And then you can either try to, add an attachment and buy it and then put it together. But the problem is you got to rip your machine apart. It's going to take way too long to put it back together. A lot of people just ended up selling their smaller machine within the first 6 months or year and then ended up buying the XX large anyway. So what I would say is if you have the extra money, buy the larger machine first off, because you're going to regret it if you don't. Now, if you buy the machine, it's basically run out of the box. You set it up, you got some bits right there with you. They're pretty cheap. And then you put it together and boom, you were ready to go. Now, what's nice about these types of machine is the XCARVE, it has the Inventables. So you have your printing software or your G-code software, you can design stuff, and same with the SHAPEOKO, you have the Carve by Create, which is free. But the one thing I wish I would have known before I bought this is that you are going to grow out of that software very quickly. Now, don't get me wrong, it's going to take you a while to learn your machine. You are going to be frustrated very quickly. If you think you're going to take this thing, set it up, and start making money immediately, I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen that way. That's the way I thought it would be, and a lot of other people thought it would be. But you really need to learn your machine, really got to learn your feeds and speeds and your software. And then once you do that, then you can start making money. But once you do get this set up, you are going to be pigeonholed for the 2D software, the free stuff, right? The Inventables and the Carve by Create. Only 2D logos and all that stuff. And you might think, hey, that's great and that's all I want it for. But there's only so many American flags you can make before you start wanting to make something different, a little bit more advanced. So what's going to happen is you're going to grow out of that software very quickly, and then you're going to start looking for other software. And really the only other software out there that is really, really good, and there are a couple, but the one that I would suggest, and like I said, we have nothing to do with this company, is Vectric Aspire. They are probably the best out there. They are super easy to use. We have videos on how to use them, and you can make some really cool stuff. 3D artwork, 3D wood carvings. It is just a fantastic piece of software. The problem is you're looking at about $3,000 for that. So once you sit there after the first 6 months or a year and you're doing your 2D prints, you're going to sit there and you're going to say to yourself, wow, I really outgrew this fast and I really want to start making some 3D prints, and you're not going to be able to do it unless you have some good software. So remember, if you're turning this into a business, you're going to have to invest in that business just like every other thing. But if you're just looking at a hobby or just doing a couple things here and there to make a few extra dollars, you can do that, but would it pay off? I'm not really sure. Now let's talk about why it might not pay off if you're only doing 2D carves. Now when I first got into this, I was making handmade flags. I was hand carving them, and I was doing pretty good, but my thing was the stars. The stars took forever. There's 50 stars on the American flag, and it took me a long time to hand, draw those and carve them out. I wasn't going to do that anymore, so I figured, okay, well, I'm going to use a Dremel. The problem with that is that when you're doing 2D artwork like that and you're trying to sell them online, there's a lot of people out there selling them online. So when you're trying to do something that everybody else is doing, if you go to Etsy's, that place is overran with the same thing over and over and over again. And the problem is, what I learned is that when you try to sell on Etsy, nobody's really going to buy off of you because there's been people on there for years and years and years that have thousands of sales, and they're more trusted because they got those ratings, right? The other places that I tried to sell was eBay, which eBay sucks. They're very expensive. You got to pay for the shipping. You got to pay for everything. And then they take such a large chunk out of you. And that place is overran. So that was the one frustration that I had, was I can make this beautiful piece of artwork, but there's other people out there on these sites that have them up there as well, and thousands of them, right? And not only that, they're always so cheap, right? I can make an American flag or whatever, make a nice sign, that says home. But the problem with that is that everybody else had them, and for some reason they were able to produce these things very cheap. I don't know how they were getting the material so cheap, but very cheap. So it's really hard to make good money doing that. Now that said, the two places that I found that I was able to sell a lot better on, and this is at your own risk, one was Facebook Marketplace, because word of mouth, you have a couple local people to see your stuff, say, hey, I've never seen that before, and they really liked it, so they bought it. And then word of mouth, people liked what they bought, they showed their friends, and then they reached out to me and asked me if I could make one. The other thing was, believe it or not, Craigslist. Now again, at your own risk, I'm not telling you go on Craigslist, I'm not telling you go on Facebook, but Craigslist is not overpopulated with a lot of these things, and you can do a pretty good job selling those. But as far as it goes with Etsy and eBay, they were just the worst. Now, I think another thing that you're probably worried about is, what about upkeep of the machine? Okay, so you already spent $1,500 or $2,000 on your XCARVE or SHAPEOKO. What about long term? Is it going to run me a lot of money? Well, I'll be honest with you, after 2 years, I have not had one issue other than maybe a wheel falling off of my Y-axis. And the only reason for that was it didn't have any Loctite. So I threw a little bit of Loctite on it. I've never had that issue since. My belts are still fine, and I used the crap out of this machine. Never had an issue with it. Also, I will tell you that brushes, if you get a brushed router, which you probably will. Now, you used to be able to buy the Makita and the DeWalt for the SHAPEOKO. No longer can you do that. You have to get SHAPEOKO's router. I don't know anything about it. I'm not sure if it's a good router or not, but I'm guessing it's probably brushed. Brushes are cheap. They're easy to change out. You can find a video on YouTube, and it literally takes you 2 minutes to do that. But as far as it goes with upkeep, I have never had an issue, knock on wood, with any damage to my machine, anything falling off of my machine, or my machine not running. And again, that's a SHAPEOKO XXL. Now, what about the learning time? I will tell you, within a month, your 2D software, such as your Carve by Create, you're going to learn that, and you're going to be pretty damn good with it. You're going to be extremely frustrated your first month, though. You're going to crash your machine. You're going to burn wood up. You're going to ruin and waste material just because you screwed something up. But don't worry. You're going to learn those speeds. You're going to learn those speeds. You're going to learn how to design a lot faster on that 2D software. And then once you do that, once you get that done, and you go over to the 3D software, well, let me tell you, you're going to have to start all over again. Even though you have your basic principles, you're still going to have to relearn all of your stuff to do that 3D printing, and the frustration is going to start all over again. But that said, once you get it down, these machines are very easy to operate. But don't fool yourself, they are not set and forget. You will still have to work. You're going to have to watch your router the entire time, because if something happens, you hit a knot in your wood, or maybe something skips or hits it or whatever, you do not want that machine running and then crashing and you not being around. You will damage everything. So you have to be there. It is a little bit of an eagle eye type of thing. So it's not just a set and forget, go to work, come back, and your stuff is done. You want to be there with your machine. So it's still going to take you time. Now, the reason I told you in the beginning of the video that we're talking about your mid or lower priced machines, right? Your Homer, your Weekend Warrior machines, is because there's only so many things you're going to be able to do with these type of machines. You're going to be able to use a 1/4 inch router bit and down, right? So a 1/16 of an inch and so on, which is good for detail work. But once you start getting into that 3D carving, you want to start making your own guitars or whatever you're trying to make, that's where the issue comes in. It's going to take you a lot longer on this machine, no matter how fast you set your feeds and speeds, because you're not going to be able to put a 1/2 inch bit or anything larger on it, and it's going to take you a very long time to carve larger pieces down. So right off the bat, after you get that 3D software, if you decide to go that way, you're going to sit there kicking yourself in the butt because you wish you would have bought a more powerful machine, something that might be able to accept a 1/2 inch, something that's not going to crash on on you if you hit some wood, or maybe a knot or something that's a little bit too hard. Something's not going to go off the rails on you and just damage your machine, because these things can only handle so much. So keep that in mind. If you are serious and wanting to start your business, and this is all you're going to do, you might want to spend a little bit more on a better machine, because these are your lower end, again, homeowner, weekend warrior type of machines. I'm not trying to fool anybody here. So if this is something you're serious about and this is all you want to do, go with something a little bit higher grade, a little bit more industrial, a couple extra $1,000 if you have it. If you don't and you just want to do the weekend thing, these are good for that. Now, another thing I do want to let you know is they are extremely dusty, dirty machines, and they are very loud and annoying machines. So if you live very close to your neighbors and your neighbors are a-holes, well, you're going to end up with issues, because these are loud, they're annoying. You're going to hear them even if they're in your garage, and they also take up a lot of room. So this is what I would suggest. Even though I have not done this yet myself, I need to build an enclosure that's going to help keep that dust down, and I'm not shooting, this over here and shooting that over here. It's contained. The other thing you're going to have is a very good vacuum, a rigid vacuum, a shop vac, whatever. But you're going to have a powerful vacuum to hook up a brush and make sure that you collect a lot of that dust, because if you don't have a vacuum, you're running about 2 minutes and your machine's already clogged. I'm just letting you know. So you're going to have those two things. You're also going to have some room. If you don't have a larger room or a larger garage or a larger basement, I'm just letting you know, these things are pretty big. 39 inches by 39 inches is the workbench table size on the XXL. So, if you don't have that size, you're going to run into issues. And just throwing this out there, if you don't have that enclosure, if you don't soundproof it somehow, if you have younger kids and you're trying to work at night, they're not going to bed. I know a couple people personally that have these machines, and they sold them because it was just too loud for them. So if you have the room and you can soundproof it, you can make it a little bit more quiet, then I think you'll be okay. But if you don't, then your wife or your girlfriend or whoever is going to be really upset with you. Now, another thing I wish I would have known is bits. When I first started, I thought I had to have the most expensive, perfect bits off of the SHAPEOKO website or the Matter Hacker site, and that is absolutely not the case. You can go to Amazon, even though they might not last as long, you get a whole crap load for a very small amount. So you can buy 5, 6, 10, 15 bits for $5, $10, and they will last you a very long time. Again, they might not last you as long as the higher grade bits, but you toss one out, you put a new one in, and you order some more. They're very cheap on Amazon. So don't worry about going out and buying bits. They're really not that expensive at all. And what I would also suggest is start out on pine, some cheap wood, because I'm telling you now, if you don't go out and start out with the MDF and all that, and you're wanting to start out on the oak or the walnut or the cherry, you are going to waste a whole lot of money until you fine tune that machine. You are basically going to become one with that machine. You're going to know the ins and out. Every squeak and noise that thing makes, you're going to know what it's doing. You need to learn how to use that software. Don't go out and waste a lot of money. That's what I did at first, just trying to learn. There was a lot of scrap wood left over. I wish I would have just started out on pine and cheap MDF, got my skill down, and then moved on to the more expensive stuff. So I'm just throwing that out there. Don't think you're going to be a pro right off the bat, or maybe you will, I don't know, but myself and a lot of other people, they just weren't, and there was a lot of money wasted. So start out a little bit cheaper and then work your way up to those finer woods. But I guess the final question, would I buy another SHAPEOKO or an XCARVE or whatever? At the end of the day, yes, I would. And I'll tell you why. I really enjoy creating. And did it make me a little bit of money? Yeah, absolutely. I was able to sell. And, it was fine. After I started picking up and the word of mouth started coming, I wasn't able to keep up with the orders. So that was a good thing. At the same time, you're going to have to invest in this. If you are going to get serious and really start selling items and making more profit, you're going to have to start getting into that 3D carving, and then you're going to have to start getting into that Vectric Aspire. You're not going to be able to just sell tons and tons of stuff, making all kind of money on 2D artwork. It's too basic. Everybody's doing it. So unless you are very skilled, unless your stuff stands out above everybody else's, or you created something that nobody else has, which eventually they will create what you created, because there's a lot of copycats out there, right? you're really gonna have to be good at what you do unless you step up your game and stand out from the rest. And that's what I learned. You have to make your stuff look a little bit better. You have to put a little extra love in your artwork, and if you do that, then you're going to be able to sell. So you will make your money back on this machine. I'm just being honest with you. You will. But you're also going to have to invest time, patience, energy, and a little bit of money up front before you do that. And once you start selling, I think you'll be all right. So at the end of the day, would I buy one again? Yeah, absolutely, I would buy one again. I would do things a little bit differently like I talked about in this video, but as long as you keep with it, you're going to be okay. Now, I want to know what you think. Have you ever used, or do you own one of these machines, the XCARVE or the SHAPEOKO? What do you think about them? What do you like about them? You know, these are just my opinions, so I'm curious to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Love hearing your feedback. If you like these type of videos, you want to learn more about 3D printing and the SHAPEOKO, XCARVE, or CNC machines in general, well, get subscribed, hit that bell notification, because we're going to have a lot more videos coming your way, just like we already have on the channel, you know, how to do things and how to learn things and feed speeds, all that good stuff. And for a smash on that like button, that would be greatly appreciated as well. So I appreciate everybody stopping by. With that, we'll be back with more videos soon.